Here's a strange fact about your species. No matter where you look in human history, no matter the century, the culture, or the corner of the world, you will find people trying to get out of their own heads. Different faces, different eras, the same restless urge to feel something other than ordinary. We have chewed it, brewed it, burned it, and swallowed it. We've built religions around it, gone to war over it, and run entire economies on it. The desire to alter the human mind is so common, in so many times and places, that it starts to look less like a habit, and more like a basic feature of being human. So let's walk through time and watch it happen. Because this is not a modern problem, or a modern vice. Long before anyone wrote a law, or a prayer, or a single word, humans were already finding ways to change how they felt. The urge is older than cities, older than farming, older than recorded history itself, and it may even be older than our species. In every era we're about to visit, the specifics change completely, the substance, and the reason, whether medicine, worship, or escape. But the underlying craving stays exactly the same, and that raises a genuinely unsettling question. Why would evolution build an animal that so badly, and so universally, wants to leave its own ordinary mind behind? To find out, we have to start at the very beginning. Go back far enough, before farms, before villages, before the written word, and you find the very first highs, and they were almost certainly discovered by accident. Nature makes intoxicants entirely on its own. Leave ripe fruit long enough and wild yeast turns its sugar into alcohol, which means the world was quietly serving up a mild drink long before anyone thought to brew one. In fact, one hypothesis suggests our attraction to alcohol may be older than humanity itself, that our distant primate ancestors, feasting on overripe, fermenting fruit, were drawn to that boozy smell because it pointed to ripe, energy-rich food. But our early ancestors didn't stop at fruit. They were expert foragers, and survival meant learning every plant in their world by trial and error, which ones fed you, which ones healed you, and which ones did something much stranger to the mind. Some of that knowledge was surely paid for in death, because the line between a plant that alters you and a plant that kills you can be razor thin. Slowly, and at real cost, humans built up a mental map of the powerful plants and fungi around them, the first hard-won catalog of how to change the human mind. Then, around 12,000 years ago, everything changed. Humans began to settle down and farm, and this may be the moment getting high stopped being something we stumbled upon and became something we deliberately made. Here's an idea that turns the usual story on its head. We're always taught that people first farmed grain to make bread. But some archaeologists argue it may have been, at least partly, to make beer. When you soak and ferment grain, you get a mild, nutritious, slightly alcoholic drink, and for an intensely social species, a substance that loosens everyone up and bonds a crowd together might well have been worth planting fields for. Whether or not beer truly launched farming, what isn't debated is this: some of the oldest chemical traces humans have ever left behind, crusted inside ancient pottery, are the residues of fermented drinks going back roughly 9,000 years. Think about what that means. Almost the instant humans could store and process crops, they were using them to brew. Alcohol became one of the very first things our species ever manufactured, woven into feasts, bargains, celebrations, and the everyday glue of settled life. We had crossed a line. We were no longer just finding the high in nature. Now we were engineering it ourselves. By the time the first great civilizations rose, intoxication wasn't some fringe activity, it was completely woven into ordinary life. Fermented drinks were everywhere, often for a very practical reason. A mildly alcoholic brew was frequently safer to drink than the local water, so people of nearly every age drank it as a normal part of the day. But it went far beyond alcohol. Ancient peoples cultivated the opium poppy, some even called it the joy plant, and used its powerful, dangerous sap as both medicine and escape. They used cannabis in ritual and in healing. In fact, much of early medicine was, in effect, a catalog of psychoactive plants, the same substances used to dull pain, to reach the gods, and simply to feel good, sometimes all at once. Getting high had become respectable. It was sacred, it was medical, and it was social, often in the very same plant. Whatever else these early societies disagreed about, almost all of them had arrived at the same conclusion, that altering the mind was a normal, valuable, deeply important part of being human. And for a huge stretch of history, the single most important reason to do it was to touch something far bigger than yourself. Because for most of the human story, the highest purpose of getting high wasn't pleasure, it was religion. Across the world, completely separate cultures, with no contact between them, independently arrived at the same astonishing idea that by altering your consciousness, you could step outside the ordinary world and touch the divine. People brewed potent drinks from jungle vines, ate certain mushrooms, and chewed sacred cactus, all as a kind of spiritual technology, a doorway to visions, to the ancestors, to the gods themselves. Some of these rites were so secret and so revered that, thousands of years later, we still don't know exactly what the participants took. Their most sacred recipes died with them. But the pattern is what's striking. Humans looked at the strange, distorted states these substances produced and concluded they must be sacred, glimpses of another realm. Whether or not that's true, one thing is undeniable. For countless cultures, the drive to alter the mind wasn't partying at the edges of society. It sat at the very center of their deepest beliefs about reality itself. Then the world's separate cultures collided, and getting high went global. As ships began stitching every corner of the planet together, the local intoxicants of one people suddenly spread to everyone, and a few of them conquered the world with astonishing speed. One certain smokable plant went from barely known to absolutely everywhere in little more than a century. And then came a quieter revolution, the one you are probably part of right this second: caffeine. Bitter brews made from certain beans and leaves swept across the entire world, and unlike almost every other intoxicant, this one made you alert, focused, and awake. Whole industries, trade routes, and daily routines reorganized themselves around a mild stimulant served in a warm cup. Meanwhile, humans mastered distillation, learning to boil and concentrate fermented drinks into spirits far stronger than anything nature made on its own. In this era, intoxicants stopped being local rituals and became global commodities, taxed, shipped, fought over, and built into the machinery of whole economies. The human high had quietly become one of the most valuable businesses on Earth, and it was about to become far more powerful. Because in the modern age, we did something genuinely new. We used chemistry to purify the high, and in doing so, made it far more dangerous. For all of history, a plant was a package. Its active ingredient came diluted, tangled up with everything else in the leaf or the flower, which naturally capped how strong it could be. Then science learned to extract just the potent part and concentrate it, turning the sap of a poppy into pure, powerful painkillers, and a humble mountain leaf into a fierce white powder. On one hand, this was a miracle, real relief from suffering that had tormented people forever. On the other hand, it tore away every natural guardrail at once. The high became stronger, faster, and far more addictive than anything our ancestors had ever had to face, and the modern world has been reeling from the fallout, in wave after wave of addiction, ever since. It's a bitter irony. We got extraordinarily good at manufacturing the high, and in the process we discovered exactly how much damage it can do once you rip it loose from ritual, from limits, and from time. So step back and look at the whole sweep of it at once. The substances changed in every single era: fermented fruit, then beer, then poppy and sacred mushroom, then tobacco and coffee, then purified chemicals. The reasons changed too: food, worship, medicine, escape, profit. But the one thing that never changed, not once, in any time or any place, was the craving itself. And that is the real revelation. Some researchers have argued that the urge to alter your own consciousness is so universal that it deserves to sit right alongside hunger, thirst, and sex, a basic drive built into the animal, not just a habit we happen to pick up. And it's genuinely hard to argue with. Even small children spin in circles for no reason but to feel dizzy. Even animals will seek out fermented fruit and intoxicating plants. The desire to escape ordinary awareness, even for a moment, seems to be wired deep into living minds, and into ours most of all. Which quietly turns the whole question inside out. Maybe the mystery was never why humans get high. Maybe the real mystery is what it says about ordinary human consciousness that we so relentlessly, in every single age, have wanted a way out of it. So the next time you reach for a warm cup of coffee to start your day, or a drink to take the edge off your evening, notice what you're really doing. You are performing one of the oldest rituals your species has, the exact same move as a forager sniffing out fermented fruit, a farmer brewing the first beer, a priest chewing a sacred plant to speak with the gods. The cup in your hand is just the newest link in a chain that runs back tens of thousands of years, unbroken, through every era humans have ever lived in. The faces change. The substances change. But that ancient itch, to feel, just for a little while, a little bit different, has been with us the entire time. It may be one of the most human things we do. So I'm curious where you land. Is this universal urge to alter our own minds a flaw in human nature, or a feature? And what's your everyday version of it? Tell me in the comments. Odds are you've got a cup of one sitting nearby right now.